Dobrý den, u podcastu Plus. U mikrofonu vás vítá Hana Polanská. Dnešní podcast bude opět v angličtině, ale budeme mít taky k dispozici české titulky. It is my honor today to introduce a French choreographer living in Berlin, Alicí Chauchat. Alice is very well known abroad because of her outstanding artistic personality. And she has been invited to create in Czech Republic for the first time. Alicí Chauchat was invited by SE.S.TA, the Choreographic Development Center, from the project Dance in the Galerie. The specific object with which Alicí Chauchat was to interact is the National Gallery's ambitious exhibition 1939-2021. The End of the Black and White Era. Her choreographic response took form in Museographic Choreography in 2024 at the Trade Fair Palace National Gallery, Prague. Today we have a nice opportunity to talk more in depth with Alice about the inspiration and underpinning of her work. Welcome, Alice.
Hello, Anna. Thank you very much.
Alice also contributed in two influential anthologies on dance, post-dance and movement research edited by Martin Spanberg. I had the opportunity to work with Alicí Chauchat on this project, and I was struck by both the conceptual and physical depth of thinking about what dance is and how we can relate to the world through it. Thanks to the meeting with Alice, an extensive article for Tanečnicí was written, which places Alice's work in the broader context of contemporary dance. I would like to dedicate this interview to Alice herself and what didn't fit in the article. Alice, you studied at prestigious dance schools. Can you describe your path to dance and how it evolved over time?
Okay. I will try to make it not too long. Okay. I started dancing when I was 8 years old because my good friend had started taking ballet classes and came over one afternoon and showed me the positions, first position, second, and so on, of the feet and of the arms, and I thought I need to learn this, and so I started taking ballet classes, and in a little school in Lyon, and then after 2 years, my parents got me into the regional conservatory, which is free, and it's a school where children can learn dance, both ballet and contemporary, and there's a bit of musical education. I had a fascination for ballet, and after high school finished, I decided that I actually needed to look into contemporary dance. And I went back to the Conservatoire Régional and then got into the Conservatoire Supérieur, the National Conservatory in Lyon. It was not very successful for me. They made me repeat my first year and then they threw me out. But then it was just my lucky day because a friend of mine who was already studying in Paris, in Brussels, told me on the phone, but come, the audition is this week. And so I joined Paris. And this was a very important shift for me because I discovered a context where dance was taught and practiced as an art form, as a contemporary art form, really with both the conceptual and a lot of discourse also around. We had classes in semiotics, but we also, we did improvisation and learned also other techniques that my body agrees more to, such as, release techniques, let's say, and other forms. So this was great, and and to understand that it was also an intellectual practice, which is a link I think I I probably guessed, but I hadn't met it, and that was really strong for me. I also met people who I wanted to work with, and the result is that I left that school at the beginning of the second year. So I actually didn't graduate any of those schools. And then I started working. So most of my education, because I was 21 when I left Paris, most of my education was actually with peers. With I was younger than most of the people I worked with, and I think I learned a lot from spending time with talking and working with colleagues and also more experienced colleagues.
So what circumstances in the dance world, or maybe in the world in general, shape you, and what kind of personalities were key for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say there's two people that in different relations have been have taught me a lot and nourished a lot of development for me, who I've been very close to. And one was Morten Spongberg, who you mentioned before, through the books that he edited. And we've had years of dialogue, and we've collaborated sometimes, but talking. So I think that he was a very crucial figure for me in developing as an artist. And this is the beginning of the 2000s. And he was connected, and so I also connected with him to what some people call the conceptual dance, this wave of mostly French choreographers, like Jérôme Bel, Xavier Leroy, but also Tino Segal, who was my generation. So this was a group somehow of people who were talking and exchanging a lot, and also a lot of people around. Of course, these are the large names, the big names, but they were all working with many people, and that was a context that was very informative for me, really in sense of thinking about the politics of performance, I would say, from the perspective of representation. How, what are the relations of gaze? What is the understanding of a body? How do we look at bodies? So all of this was very, very rich, and because of my own history, I think I was very intrigued in understanding the history of dance as a history of thinking those things, politics of the body mostly, I guess. And another figure that I have to name is Jennifer Lacey, who in a way created like an interruption for me in this flow of looking at performance as maybe something more semiotic. And suddenly I saw her work, and it was full of semiotics, but it was impossible to make a klartext of, like they say in German, when you speak straight about things. Everything was very queer, and not necessarily in terms of sexuality, possibly, it doesn't matter, but really in cultivating strangeness and mystery and a complexity that cannot be held in rational description, where you have to push towards a more poetic mode of relating, which for me was wonderful. So I got myself into Jenny's work, basically. I asked her, and then from then we developed a very long friendship that we're still nourishing through working with each other and talking. And with her, I think I got access to another layer of what is it to be a body in dance, or a body. I don't really like that, but how materiality and sensuality and form and everything that is physical participates in the experience of being a person, and in perceiving the world and being perceived, and then there was this I realized there's two more things in the important influences. One thing is somatic practices, and the other is collective practices. Around 2006, I think, I started working very closely, especially with Frédéric Guise, who was a friend who was living in Berlin at that time, and who was very devoted to body-mind centering as a study. And together we were trying to understand what does it do, what kind of dance, and how does it make us look at dancing when the dancing is completely initiated and oriented around the body's own experience and not its image. And then we created a collective with colleagues. I mean, this was also very, very informative. I've been part of collectives of very different kinds and collective structures, and this is something that I was always very fascinated by and driven towards, which is, understanding that as an artist, I'm part of the making of contemporary dance, more than I'm developing my work. My art is like my work is part of a larger thing that is made of the work of many people, and what are the structures that enable that. This has also been very important.
Somewhat simplistically, we can say that there have long been two distinct currents in dance. One that relies on a certain technique of the dancers and strives for a certain purity of style and breathtaking performances, and the other that works with somatic perception, improvisation, and puts a more horizontal approach to the work of the dancers.
I think it probably was very majoritarian. I don't know, maybe 40 years ago, but it doesn't seem. I think it's very rare choreographers who don't work with improvisation nowadays. If it's to do movement research, to find inspiration or so, then whether the movements are set or not for the piece, it's another thing. I don't feel that it's a fight nowadays for me or in my context, But the funny thing is about improvisation is that I never identified as an improviser or as being part of that lineage. I was just now, just for the anecdote, and you can cut it off, but I want to tell it here. I just spent 8 days, I told you now, in southern France for this improvisation summer school that was connected to this research project. And I was there with 40 people who all might have their difficulties with the term, but basically are deeply devoted to improvised dancing. It was so surprising and beautiful for me to realize, wow, and these are actually my people. I can also, I can absolutely connect to what animates them and so on. And for me, I think improvisation was a bit like the name for self-expression, the cult of personality, being yourself, and then I was thinking, but why should I go to the theater to watch people being themselves? It was not, or being wonderful personalities. But I think I start to understand now more and more how complex the practice of improvisation is, and how very often it's about exactly overcoming that.
And you also say that the dancer and dancing are three independent entities, if I remember well.
Oh God, yes, in that text that will always come back to me. And, yes.
Yeah, and for many people this may sound a little bit strange to say, the least, because it is often said that the dancer expresses herself on stage. And so how did you come to that conclusion?
So I don't know if it's a conclusion or a functional hypothesis. Because you could say it's also a trick. I think it's true, and also it's a rhetoric trick, both. You can say it's a trick because it's a way to shortcut the excessive enthusiasm about, meeting yourself in the dance and showing yourself in the dance. So this closed loop onto when, me and my belly button somehow, me and the dance has a chance for that. There are wonderful practices that focus on that. Mostly they're therapeutic. So then it's more a question of, as an art form, what do you want to give for people to be with? And also for me it was because I started this thinking with the dance of companionship about 10 years ago, when in a moment where I really wanted to dance. I had been dancing very little for some years because of becoming a mother, directing an art center, having, being very busy with other things and not so engaged with my own dance or choreographic practice. And at that moment I really wanted to dance, but I had still the same problem. It was like a ball and chain, It was like, there's no way I start moving, then I'm embarrassed. I was dealing with a lot of embarrassment, I guess, or rejection, or I want to, but I don't want this and this and this. And then the intuition of companionship showed itself for me, which was a little solution in a way to say, the dance is not about me. The dance has its own existence, and its job is not to be about me. So of course, it's brought about by me. I can't get rid of myself. I'm here, I have my history, I have my taste, I have my technique, I have my body and everything. But so of course it's tainted very much by what I can do, who I am, or what I want to do. But that's not the point. That's not the focus. It's just a means for the dance to appear, and then to be able to be in conversation with that thing through this identifying. Also, and also to move around the idea of mastery, of mastering the dance, of crafting the dance, of shaping the dance, and which I think it's quite a personal political sensitivity, that I've been nourishing. So this how to engage and allow the dance to appear without trying to dominate it or identify with it, I would say. And then dancing, it's an activity. It's not a subject or
And you speak also sometimes, not sometimes, but almost always, or you call your practice ethical. So can you speak a little bit more about what it means that your practice is ethical and why? And also about the unknown, which enters into the process of dancing.
Yeah. Those two are totally related for me, because when I speak of ethical practice, in this context, it's really. I was mentioning before that I've been very engaged since ever in collective, collaborative setups, structures, and so on, which I think is a political practice. How do you design structures that enable and support a certain distribution of resources, access, power, I don't know, like this. But then within this, there's I think the ethical is much more is the activity of understanding that there is a question that doesn't have a predetermined solution. And to take it seriously and to engage with that. And I think this happens mostly in encounters, in relationships between people. We can have all the rules we want and gender equality, I don't know. And but then there's also the individuals, there's actually a person here who is not the same as your person, and then and how do you do, and that also overlaps with the pedagogical for me, I think, which is how to not assume, how can we train ourselves to pay attention and make the effort of understanding and exchanging and communicating, and in the same time not close, so that to not allow ourselves to think that now we know, because this is a way of putting a stamp on people, even if it's temporary, but the idea, it's overbearing. The more, if I think I know what you're going to say, I'm going to speak in your name. I'm not going to listen to you. There's a lot of things I'm going to anticipate and react. And how to maintain this attention. And this is why I think the dissociation in the dialogue or in the conversation or engagement with dance. Is in a way I transpose a similar setup, which is I might feel a very intimate relation with this dance, but still it's not me, and this is, you could say it disturbs the idea of empathy, but I don't think so. It's just to keep valuing something in the other that we don't know, that we cannot know, and that we also, it's okay to not know. And also some people we know almost nothing of, and we can also value that. There's many degrees.
And how you nourish this kind of ideas?
Yeah, I mean, living, we are not alone, and so this is one thing, and all these collective commitments and just relationships and so on. So this is one thing, and dancing. Another thing is how to dance with other people, and how there's ways of dancing together that are wonderful, like contact improv and things like this, that I don't feel very comfortable in. There's something I feel a little bit a bit better with a little bit more distance. Yeah. And I mean, sometimes it can happen. It's wonderful, and but there's a euphoria, but also to appreciate and to nourish a type of gentleness of being with the dance and with other people. How can it function besides logics of absorption? And now we're back to politics of the theater. Fascination, absorption, admiration. What are other ways that we can be with?
But I was always curious why dance changed so much in the 90s and after, and the paradigm changed totally, and I was always curious why it happened and why so many dancers and choreographers start to be interested in this kind of questions about representation and theater, institutional critique, and so on. So why is that?
I don't know. But I think it's a very interesting question.
Yeah, because now it's quite obvious it is happening, but I think 10 years ago here in Czech Republic we just didn't know it is happening so much. So it's in our case, I think it's still something new. And the people are doing this like very intuitively in the art world. They have not such a big theoretical base, but they are doing this. So there is certainly some need in the society, and the artists are sensitive enough to respond to some needs.
I think we're also in a new moment in relation to politics and representation, which is something that was really very weak 25 or 30 years ago, which is identity politics, which is very strong nowadays. So this is yet a new take on the question of representation. Huh? How? Because at that time it was really, I don't know, it was a bit like with 20 years, being 20 or 30 years late to the visual arts, with minimalism and conceptual art. So trying to unpack what is the specificity of the medium, of the choreographic medium, which means of course the stage and of course the body, and why it happened at that moment, I don't know. But now I think now we're talking about not the work I do, but a lot of art that is done nowadays, which is really tackling those questions, and it's obvious, they're everywhere in society.
And in my experience, when I work with you, your suggestions and requests often seemed overwhelming during the rehearsal, and contradictory and paradoxical, but on the other hand, they were always supported by very clear analysis. How did you arrive at this approach, and what are you trying to achieve by this kind of overwhelming request?
I guess they do a few things. One is to disarm a lot of the habits, apparatus that we carry around as dancers in relation to mastery, identification. How will I be seen if I do this and that? Because then it's about me. Do I do it well enough? So a lot of those things that have to do with wanting to know. So I think the riddles, you could say, that are in the score, they're in a way it's very obvious that there is no solution to them. That it will not be. There is no chance that you find the right way of answering them. And I think that is a relief, since there is no right way, and that's something we often say. But in this case, you hear the thing, you understand that there is.
Actually, it was a relief for me, and it was for the first time in my life that I felt relief dancing.
Since there's no clear order of who does what when. So you're at the same time always needing to figure, and what do I do now? But also, what are the others doing? And you can read each other now pretty well, actually. You know which score people are engaging in, even though the actual movements that are put in each other's score, it could be the same, or it could be any of them. Because sometimes it seemed that you can do whatever. Because sometimes I was like, okay, so now I will cheat and I do whatever I want. But it's not. Also, it's. I think it's visible, because then you not focus on the task, and so you cannot cheat it like this. And because if you're not focused on the time, then you're back to what you know about dancing.
Exactly.
And you can see that.
So this was very interesting to work with you, and I was very amazed about your approach. But one thing was very interesting, that I had a feeling that it really changed my brain. That there is something really chemical. And if you work in the laboratory you said in the Vienna. So what kind of responses you had from students or from your colleague if you suggested this kind of practices?
Okay, so in Vienna there's two things. There's this lab, this yearly week that we did, that Jennifer had been doing, Jennifer Lacey, and then where I participated also at some point, and then we organized together another series that we hosted, and there was many artists who teach, getting together and playing around and talking and so on. But I do this. I share those scores in teaching situations a lot since all these years and in many contexts. And there's often a similar response, of there's always some people who want to ask a lot of questions. Usually there's always some who are like, wait a minute, what do you mean? And how does it work? And how, and then there is I have to find a way to interrupt that flow of questions and to get people to trust that they will figure. It's like, because there is no answer. What you need is to keep on entertaining the question in doing it. And chemically, because you mentioned what does it do chemically in the brain, there's this image, I don't know if I told it to you already, about the sea urchin.
Don't remember.
It's a beautiful story. Eleanor Bauer, American choreographer, told it to me. And then I was speaking about dancing and how, I want, when we dance, to activate all the degrees of perception that we have, that are, sensorial, poetic, formal, rational, like everything, imaginary. And then she told me that story of a friend of hers, who was an artist in the States, who did a collaboration with a neuroscience lab. And he got them to do, how do you call that, the film of your brain? But basically, it's a film of the activity in your brain, the electric activity. And he had asked the lab to ask him questions to which he wouldn't know the answer. And what happens in the moment that he receives the question is that the brain starts firing in all directions. And she said it looks like a sea urchin. This thing. And I loved it. And for me, it's a very beautiful image of dancing. Is how do you create vibrancy? How do you animate everything? And I think that's a little bit the thing with those riddles, the problems. Like, you don't know. You don't know. So you need to keep on looking. But that it also means, anything will go, you could say. But that would be boring. So you and also there's an intensity, of opening all those channels and sensing that possibilities. It changes the tone of the person, of the self, of the body, and of the dance.
It reminds me also when we were talking about William Forsythe, that he's also trying to put a lot of demands and on their dancers, on his dancers, and I think it's a similar effect. So they're spread to every every side, and I just want to ask you, what interests you now most about your work? Because you develop a lot of practices, you work in a very... you have a range of practices. And so what is now the most interesting for you?
I'm really curious to understand, where can I go with thinking, what would it be to dance as a group beyond... people next to each other. And I think, I know that the unison, as a matter of fact, score is there. It points this way, but this is what I would like to explore further, to understand better. And and also how this can be done, in different contexts and with different types of people. Really to continue to push further a little bit this idea that, these are forms of social dances, that there is a value in dancing them for the experience of dancing them. And if it's about relation and group and so, then what types of groups does it nurture? But it's all very vague for now.
I'm just curious why a lot of artists, including me, are so much interested in to put the dance to the public spaces and work with the social groups, and not so much in the theaters and with the professionals only. So this is also something very interesting nowadays.
Well,
that a lot of choreographers or dancers start to think about the society and
for me it was one thing that was wonderful with doing the piece with you in the gallery was actually because it was a commission. We made an artwork for an art temple. And there was no negotiation about that because it was part of the brief in a way. And so then suddenly I found myself really exercising my gaze, and looking and talking with you in order to find together how to shape the piece, not each of you, not the dance of each of you, but the piece, and to make it. And so it's funny, I'm answering a little bit through the back door. But I think because what's on my mind is it's very different types of pleasures and different necessities also, or agendas.
And did you find something for yourself during this work with, on this commission?
Yes, absolutely. No, I mean, this thing that I just named, it's the second time in my life that I make a piece without dancing in it. Or, I mean, okay, I've made solos in collaboration with colleagues, 2 of them where each time the other was dancing, and once where I was dancing. But everybody was an author in the process. Now is the second time that I'm the author. Let's say I signed the piece and I'm outside. And usually I'm always inside, or there's. And so this was interesting. This experience of directing from outside with people. I mean, we all didn't know each other before, and so it was also the processing of getting to know each other, how each of you works, how I work, how this to understand how we converse somehow. I loved that. That was really beautiful, and also I think for me it was the chance to give a lot of space to the appreciation of dances, also as things. Each dance, doesn't matter what dance comes out, but there's a lot of attention to it. There's there's appreciation in all their possibilities and diversity, or I don't know, but to insist on affirming each of them really as a thing beyond the activity of dancing. I think for me that was really nice.
And I also appreciate very much that you said that if you are dedicated to the movement and dance, that every dance are equal for you.
They're all good. I mean, they're all delicious, even. It's not about good enough. It's just,
So this kind of equality, it's also somehow connected with the ethics, maybe.
It's really to say the value comes from the care, from the commitment, and from the affirmation. And
this care was visible also during the whole process, and the collaboration with you. So is the care also something you are very much interested in? Like how to care about environment, how to care about people you work with, how to settle the condition for the work and so on.
Oui. Sure, of course.
Because sometimes
it's not so much a question, how to do it. I think we all know how to do it.
Because
it's more to make the effort, to be attentive.
Because we are now talking a lot also about precarity in art world. So it's not so. It's not always so common that the conditions are good for artists.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking about this, because sometimes also for Czech artists it's not easy to live from art.
Yeah.
But with you, I felt very safe because you. Yeah, and I also felt that it's also from not only because you want to set the condition because it's right, but it's somehow connected with your practice as a dancer and choreographer.
Earlier at the beginning, you asked me to name some of the influential coordinates, and when I was mentioning this kind of turn of the 2000s scene, some things that were very, very present in the discussion were the conditions of work and the idea that the process has a direct impact on the product. And then this moved into the process itself. Can also be the product. And so I think this is also, and to understand that to discuss the budget and to arrange it in something correct, and to discuss the schedule of work and to understand what are the needs, to say the material conditions, the economic conditions, the human conditions, just this, what is the space for looking at each other and talking and being interested. And also that there needs to be time for that, because when we work, we work. So all of this, I think, is part, of course, of what shapes the work. But it's the same. But I think it's probably what you say, that it's not a different agenda. It's the same. It's the same values, probably, or politics. And what about you? You just defended your thesis, so you just finished this big research, on with neuroscientists and aging and dancing, and we just did that piece. There's different things that are just behind you, and what's ahead? Where is your main interest now?
Yeah. I was actually very lucky that I did a piece with you, because it was almost after 10 years maybe that I had this really big dance piece. I can call it big because it's three hours and it's very demanding and it's built very carefully and with intellectual mastery and artistic mastery from you. And I think it keeps some balance because I did a lot of scientific work and I sit in the table and writing papers and this stuff. And I realize how much it is connecting everything what I'm doing. I'm interested in dances and performances, and I'm meeting people who are very much interested about society, ethics in their work, and they are asking themselves what is dance or what the dance can be. And it's the same with me. I'm also asking myself all the time, what is the dance and what dance can be. And how we can share the dances and dance among us, and maybe somehow change some rigid patterns in the society. And this is what connects my dancing or artistic curiosity with the science, because scientists ask themselves how we can overcome the rigidity in dementia, for example. So the answer could be, maybe we can dance, we can share the synchronized movement, we can share, we can connect, and through the connection we improve synaptic plasticity in the brain, and so on and so on. We can improvise, then we can improve mental flexibility, because we need to adapt in every moment on our environment. And that's what aging people are not used to do so often. So somehow I try to connect these two worlds together. It's not easy because there are barriers.
Do you want to continue working with the older people?
Sure.
Yeah.
Because older people somehow attract me. Somehow. I don't know why exactly. Maybe because my father was old. So maybe this is the main reason. So I have some special relationship to this specific group of people, and it's a pleasure also because these people are quite free, or they are if they are starting dancing, they immediately start to liberate themselves.
Yeah?
Somehow. Yeah.
How
it's
interesting, no?
It's very interesting.
You see?
Yeah.
There's something simple and essential.
Yeah. That's why I'm asking all the time myself. Or not asking, I'm just think that dance is magic. And also the doctor, who was in my defense, he said there is something magic on dance.
Yeah.
I'm back in your practice or your work because there is something magic also in your work. Very, that is, for me, there is mysterious. I never experienced before when working with the choreographers.
Yeah, it might be on the one hand both to complicate and to strengthen. Well, our practices of being together, being with strangers, very important. Not just with people that we feel, oh, now we belong together, but also people we feel we don't have much in common with, and still to engage in this possibility of paying attention, not ignoring them, but not building walls from that. And so there's something hyper basic and very complicated in this, you know.
Thank you, Alice. It was a great conversation.
Thank you, Hanka. The pleasure is mine. We continue.
Yeah, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.